We got some breaking news. We got some good news here. So those uninitiated, Eric Swalwell, I think he was running for, or what? He was running for governor of California, I think. And he was in Congress at the time, or like he was in Congress, but we got another one. So he had some sexual abuse allegations, including rape allegations, tossed at him from I think multiple women. There was, reporting. They came, as far as I know, anonymously to reporters and provided all of their corroborating evidence to them so that they could report on it accurately. And so he dropped out of the governor's race. And I was saying, I don't know if he's going to actually get kicked out of Congress. I wasn't expecting Democrats to actually bring forth a motion or whatever to expel him from Congress. So I was thinking he might end up staying there until at least the end of his term, which I assume would be November. But we got a little bit of good news. We got an early retirement from Representative Eric Swalwell. This is Representative Eric Swalwell to resign from Congress amid sexual misconduct allegations. ABC News. Let's see what's going on.
We have breaking news at this hour. Democratic Congressman Eric Swalwell of California has just announced his resignation from Congress following allegations of sexual assault and misconduct. Let's get straight to ABC's Jay O'Brien on Capitol Hill with the latest. Jay, I know this news is just coming out, but what more do we know?
Stephanie, just breaking moments ago in a dramatic turn of events here. Congressman Eric Swalwell suspended his campaign for governor yesterday, but now he is resigning from Congress after a steady drumbeat of pressure from some of his fellow Democrats who had called on him to either resign or face an expulsion vote. And there was a brewing expulsion attempt here on Capitol Hill, a vote likely to be forced as early as this week for Swalwell to be expelled.
So they were going to force a vote. Hey, good for you, Democrats. I guess sometimes I flatten the difference between Republicans and Democrats sometimes. I know that I do that. And there are meaningful differences between Democrats and Republicans, and this is one of them. You are able to pressure a Democrat out of office for sexual misconduct claims. That is a major difference between Democrats and Republicans. Now, I'm sure that there are plenty of other Democrats who have, engaged in this type of behavior as well. That there probably are people that other people even know that they have done it. I guess what I'm saying is, I'm not going to be clapping too hard for the Democrats here because they really, I think, are, in my opinion, mostly cynical. However, this is an occurrence where you get to see the actual difference between someone doing this in the Democrats and someone doing it as a part of the Republicans. So, yeah.
And potentially some other members of Congress as well, Democrats and Republicans who have various issues in front of the Ethics Committee. Swalwell had faced accusations of sexual assault and sexual misconduct, including from former staffers of his. And I want to read to you a little bit of a statement that just came out moments ago. He says, quote,
I thought they were all former staffers of his. If I remembered correctly, he just seemed to only harass the people who worked for him.
I am deeply sorry to my family, staff, and constituents for mistakes in judgment I have made in my past. I will fight, he goes on to say, the serious false allegations made against me. However, I must take responsibility and ownership for the mistakes I did make. He said he's aware of ongoing efforts to potentially expel him from Congress here on Capitol Hill. He goes on to say, in his view, it's, quote, wrong to expel a member without what Swalwell says is due process. Only today did the House Ethics Committee say it would conduct an investigation into these accusations against Eric Swalwell. He goes on to say, quote, I will work with my staff in the coming days to ensure they are able, in my absence, to serve the needs of the good people of the 14th Congressional District. But he did say that he felt that this ongoing scandal had distracted from his duties up here on Capitol Hill. So Eric Swalwell resigning from his office, that seat will be empty. There will, of course, ultimately
one less rapist in power. There's still a lot of them. I'm sure there's still a lot of them. I am curious what he's going to do now, because the way I see it is there's two directions he can go. Number one, and probably easiest, is he just becomes a Republican. If he just becomes a Republican, he'll probably be able to get, I mean, he would have to distance himself from his like previous previous Dem policies or whatever, but he probably, I think, could make the transition to being a Republican, and I think they would accept him with open arms. But or number two, he can go like the Cuomo route and just like try and hang out in the background, in the periphery for you know, a year or two, and then try to come back at some point in the future, like, and get beaten by a Mamdani, hopefully, if that's the case. But yeah, those are like the two routes that I see him potentially going down.
It'd be a special election to
Because God knows these people never go out and get a real fucking job. Like go out, like they never like stop and then like just go work a construction job or something, or like become a plumber, like open a plumbing business. Like they're like, you know what, I'm tired of being in the limelight. This has really, you know, been taking a number on my family. I'm gonna go, I decided I'm resigning from public life in its entirety. No, they never do that. These people are cretins. They will stick around doing whatever they possibly can to, he'll probably start a podcast, if I had to guess, is what he's actually going to end up doing, is the Eric Swalwell, I didn't do it, but I did make some mistakes. But I'm going to be very vague about it. Podcast. They can call it vague about it. They could call the podcast "Don't Ask." Don't ask with Eric Swalwell. I think that seems good to me. What do we think about that branding, people? I don't know.
Resigning from his office. That seat will be empty. There will, of course, ultimately be a special election to fill that seat in California that the governor of California will call. But a stunning turn of events here, Stephanie, a breakneck pace of which this story has developed, now again resulting in Eric Swalwell resigning from Congress.
And Jay, as you know, Swalwell had been a fixture on the Hill for a really long time. But you also know that his own Democratic colleagues there on the Hill were calling for him to resign. What are some of the things that they had been saying the last couple of days?
And notable here, Stephanie, because Eric Swalwell was considered for a time a rising star in the Democratic Party. He was on the coveted position of the House Intelligence Committee up here on Capitol Hill for a time until Republicans stripped him of
I think he sucked. If I remember correctly, I think he sucked. I could be wrong, but I thought he was like a corporate Dem. I can try and find that out, though.
Remember, he had an ill-fated presidential campaign at one point, and he was the leading candidate in this Democratic race for the Democratic nomination in the California gubernatorial race until these accusations surfaced. And then ultimately, of course, he stepped out of.
Okay. All I need to know is that he was raised by Republicans, so that should say something.
That race and has now resigned from Congress. And it's notable, Stephanie, that these Democratic lawmakers came out in the last few days and said that they believe that Eric Swalwell,
also his father was a cop, so that also says something.
Had no.
I think that like people whose like fathers are cop are probably, I don't know if they're statistically significantly more likely to rape somebody, but you know, like they might be. Someone needs to do a study on it. I don't know. I know that cops like, you know, the cops have a pretty bad track record when it comes to committing acts of sexual assault, like in a statistically significant kind of way. So I wouldn't be surprised if some of that rubs off on the kid.
Place in the United States House of Representatives. Democratic leaders like Hakeem Jeffries, for instance, the top Democrat in the House, or Nancy Pelosi, the former Democratic Speaker, did come out in the last few days and say, in their view, Eric Swalwell should have suspended his gubernatorial campaign. They said that before he did, but they didn't go so far as to say that he should be booted from the House of Representatives or face an expulsion vote that has a really high threshold to clear. You need 2/3 of the House of Representatives to vote to expel anyone. So that's a hearty chunk of both Democrats and Republicans in that chamber. But Eric Swalwell tonight saying that he believes all of this has become a distraction, in his words, to his work, and so he believes it's the proper thing to do to resign. Stephanie.
Jay, would you say that this now punctuates challenges for Democrats in the state of California with the primary just around the corner?
It's unclear because that primary is still very much an open race. Eric Swalwell will be on the ballot. The deadline for him to be removed from the ballot has since passed, but there are other.
There's like 60 people on the ballot, if I remember. It's insane. It's a crazy primary.
Democrats in that race, like, for instance, former Congresswoman Katie Porter, who is seen as someone who could potentially take up that front runner.
And as far as I know, there's nobody good. I haven't heard anybody talk about a potential good option for this district. None of the people that I watch have even talked about it. So as far as I know, there's nobody, like, I don't know if there's like a Bernie-crat that is like an actual good politician to take this seat. I have no idea. Or to take the governorship. I have no idea.
Mantle now that Eric Swalwell has stepped aside. But all of that to say the titanic change in that race has been clear, right? Eric Swalwell, the frontrunner, has stepped aside. He's cleared the field for those other Democrats. And if you win the Democratic nomination in California, you have a fairly good, if not locked-in chance, of course, to become the next governor of that state. But the circumstances here on Capitol Hill were different. Eric Swalwell was facing growing calls from Democrats to resign. He was also facing a brewing expulsion vote, but he could have held on. He could have fought that process out. Think back to George Santos, who faced an expulsion vote, and there were multiple attempts to boot George Santos out of the House of Representatives until ultimately one was successful. Eric Swalwell could have held on here, but again, he's choosing tonight to step aside. Stephanie.
Yeah, I think that they probably, like, there's a difference between doing this to Republicans versus doing this to Democrats. Republicans are much more likely to close ranks and like protect and what's his face's case, the like scams that he did or whatever, but like also to protect, like they have like Jim Jordan, right? Like they protect pedophiles and stuff. Like if you're going to like close ranks and protect your pedophiles, then I think that you're going to close ranks and protect like from, someone being a little sexual assaulty or whatever. However, like Democrats are different in that like some of them have morals, like not all of them. I wouldn't even say most of them, but some of them have morals. So I think that you probably could get that extra, like, 15% or whatever, 16% of Democrats to go along with all the Republicans, if you had to. So like that's where, yeah. Like I said, this is one of those moments where it's like, okay, there is a difference between Democrats and Republicans. The reason that I get, the reason why I get a little bit like, I flatten that sometimes is because a lot of times, at least for the current crop of Democrats or the people who hold power, they are much more aligned with Republicans. And in fact, there's not much of a difference between them and if you go back to Republicans like from the Reagan era. Like they basically have the same ideology. A lot of the people in power do. Like I'm talking like the Schumers, the Jeffries, like the people at the top, like who have most of the power when it comes to our political leadership. They are basically indistinguishable from like a Reagan era Republican, right? And yes, right now they look much more reasonable compared to Republicans, but like I think that most Democrats, especially corporate Democrats, are more closely aligned with Republicans and even with MAGA than they are with my worldview. And so that's why I sometimes, flatten that difference. But there are times like this that make me go, okay, there is a difference. There is a difference, people. Not a big enough difference in my opinion, but there is a difference. Well, okay, let's see. And also this is the one last thing. This is the difference in terms of like a reaction to a scandal, right? That is a different analysis than the difference between their actual like economic policy positions or something though.